We are live. We are post 2026 NFL Combine. There's a lot of content in the next couple of days, couple of weeks. I wanted to discuss the Combine, recap the NFL Combine. Gonna be honest, did not want to have like a video just solely dedicated to the biggest winners and losers of the Combine. So thought that this would be a good happy medium. We get to we get to discuss the NFL Combine. We get to break down the biggest winners and losers, and of course we get to interact with you guys, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive right in here. One of the biggest winners, and by the way, this is in no sort of ranking. This is we're not going to say that the first player we are going to discuss, Kenyon Sadiq, is by far the biggest winner. There's a lot of big winners from the 2026 NFL Combine, but for Kenyon Sadiq, 6'3", 240, a player that I like a lot. A lot of people like Kenyon Sadiq for obvious reasons. I thought he really stood out for obvious reasons, and Kenyon Sadiq, one of the biggest questions whenever you're kind of below sub 245 as a tight end is, you are expected to be athletic, but just how athletic are you, how athletic are you relative to other NFL players? Kenyon Sadiq sets an NFL Combine record, runs a 4.3940, which, by the way, a 4.3940 for anybody is good, let alone a tight end at 240 pounds, 241 pounds to be exact. Has a 43.5-inch vertical, and what's kind of, I guess you could say, unfortunate for Kenyon Sadiq is that would have been, the 43.5-inch vertical is utterly insane. But another tight end from this class I'm actually going to, or from the NFL Combine, what I'm actually going to do is also bring up Eli Stowers. Eli Stowers had a 45-inch vertical. So for Eli Stowers to also have a 45-inch vertical, those two are two of the absolute biggest winners from the 2026 NFL Combine. Now, one thing that I will say about Eli Stowers as an NFL prospect, and one thing that I do want this, and want the draft discussions to be is, an open discussion. Let me know how you feel. Let me know where, if you're higher or lower on a prospect. I want to really break down as many prospects as we can prior to the 2026 draft. So with Eli Stowers, this is a prospect on tape that I thought was really athletic. I thought was really a good receiving tight end, but naturally there's a little bit of a ceiling for receiving tight ends. Generally just because you have to, as a tight end, have a baseline as an inline blocker. But Eli Stowers, 4.5, 140, 45.5-inch vertical, also an 11.3 broad jump, and he won the Mackey Award this past year. There's going to be a lot of questions with Eli Stowers about how he blocks at the NFL level, and I do think in a lot of ways that Eli Stowers is a bigger receiver. But for Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers to both have the NFL Combines the way they did, undoubtedly two of the biggest winners from this past weekend. And Kenyon Sadiq, I thought entering the weekend that I was a little lower on Sadiq than other analysts. I know other analysts are really, really high on Kenyon Sadiq, and I wouldn't say that I'm, have him go from, X player on my board to, top 5 after this specific weekend. But I'm going to go back and watch the tape and really, see if that 4.3940 regularly shows up, or if that was a one-time workout. And obviously players, for transparency, you're not going, Xavier Worthy's not a 4.2140 guy every single Sunday, if that makes sense. Let's just kind of go ahead and distinct the two, if you will. But Kenyon Sadiq is a player whose tape I will definitely go back through multiple times over. Eli Stowers, I was really surprised by the 45-inch vertical. That is utterly insane. I was not surprised by the 4.5, 140 for Eli Stowers. Generally, I do think he is, like I said, a bigger receiver. And I do want to credit somebody that I talked to this weekend in Indy, and I don't want this to be a quote that goes back to him, because it was we were having a good time in Indy. Everybody was shooting the shit, if you will. So this was not like a serious quote, although I do want to attribute the person that said this quote, and that was my guy James Foster. James Foster, this very much applies to Eli Stowers. He jokingly, and again, he does phenomenal work, so don't take this as like this is his type of work. He does awesome work. He jokingly said that I'm going to start to compare tight ends to either Mike Gesicki or Jackson Halls. Obviously, Eli Stowers would be Mike Gesicki, the receiving tight end. But that's, you can see why. 4'5", 140, 45-inch vert. Huge winner for Eli Stowers. And would be pretty surprised at this point if he's not taken before day 3, simply because there are not many players that have that type of build, that have that type of athleticism, that can come in and make that type of impact from day 1. People are saying to like the stream and that we're only at 10 likes. I'm not going to complain. Hypothetically, would very much appreciate that. Would actually really appreciate if you guys like the stream. A football will appear when you do. But there's a super chat here. Want to address the super chat before we continue. It is from my pet bearded dragon, big Bears fan. Appreciate it, long time supporter. Says, how was your time at the Combine? Did you interview for the Vikings GM job while you were there? So my time at the Combine was awesome. Absolutely enjoyed it. It was awesome. There's a lot of people that you guys probably watch in the NFL draft space. There's a good chance that I hung out with them. I mean, everybody was at Indy. Everybody was there. It was a great time. It's a small world out there, and it was awesome. And I absolutely loved it. I plan to be back next year, and I did meet Brett Coleman, for reference. I was really looking forward to that. And funny story about that is Marcus, obviously you guys know my guy Marcus Whitman. We were walking in Indy, and we passed, we passed a corner here. We look down the street, and I look, and I'm like, dude, there's Brett and EJ. We see Brett and EJ walking down the street, and we're like, hey, have you, first conversation, of course, is between, guys is, have you guys had lunch? Food's always on our mind. So we had lunch together. It was awesome. Just loved Indy. Loved Indy. Can't wait to go back next year. So it was a great time. Great time. Also did not formally interview for the Vikings GM, but would definitely welcome if that opportunity presented itself. All right. Thoughts on the Lions trading David Montgomery? How will this affect them, good or bad? So I like this trade a lot more for the Texans than I do the Lions. Montgomery had 33 total touchdowns for the Lions in 45 games played. And I think that the Texans very much won this trade, if you will. The Lions got Juice Scruggs and a 4th-round pick. The running back class is not great this year. So for the Texans to be able to acquire a player of Montgomery's caliber, to me, big winners for the Houston Texans. I like the Browns acquiring Titus Howard. Earlier in the day, they gave him a $21 million average annual value contract as well. The Browns obviously have a lot of holes this offseason, or a lot of holes along the offensive line. So really like that move as well. The Texans made 2 trades today. They traded away Titus Howard. They acquired David Montgomery. Like the Titus Howard trade for the Browns, anytime you give up a 5th-round pick for a starter, to me is fine. I know there's going to be Texans fans that probably say Titus Howard is not the best, and he's not the best. There's a reason he went for a 5th-round pick. But I like the trade for the Browns, but I like the Texans acquiring David Montgomery as well. And I don't think that he is washed the way that people probably want to make him out to be. All right, next player. That is a big Combine winner. Let's go ahead and break it down. Malachi Lawrence, the pass rusher from UCF. So Malachi Lawrence is a player that you're probably starting to see if you are just getting into the pre-draft process. Malachi Lawrence is a player that I think is a good sleeper for a lot of analysts. He showed a good pass rush profile at UCF last year, and he tested off the charts. For reference, 6'4", 255, nearly 34-inch arms, which is huge for his size. That's incredible. 4'5", 240, and the only players that he was slower, like in his group, were Arvell Reese and David Bailey, both who are projected to go in the top 10. So Malachi Lawrence is a player that I really like the pass rush upside. I would be surprised if Malachi Lawrence does not go before the end of the second round. I would actually be really surprised if he's not a top 64. I'll say, honestly, top 55 pick. 64 is 32 teams times two rounds, 64 picks, first 2 rounds. I would be surprised if he is not taken in the top 55. Very, very easy player to project. And whenever you are 6'4", 255, near 34-inch arms, 4'5", 40, coaches are going to fall in love. And everything that I've heard about Malachi Lawrence is nothing but good things. And a lot of the time that, you'll see in Indy, or that you'll find out either in Indy or find out months later, is what does the guy have, between the ears? What type of player is he? What type of work ethic does he have? And everything that I've heard about Malachi Lawrence, nothing but good things. So would be absolutely shocked if Malachi Lawrence is not a player that's selected in the top 55. Absolutely love him as a player for what he is, or for who he is. And I think that he is a really fun player to project. And if you are a Madden franchise player, I'd imagine that you would like him a lot in the next game, because he is a big height, weight, speed guy with a lot of upside. So that's how I would describe Malachi Lawrence right now. And for whatever team drafts Malachi Lawrence, you have this big ball of clay, if you will. How are you going to mold him as he, progresses throughout his NFL career? And how are you going to get the most out of it? Get the most out of him. So I like Malachi Lawrence a lot, and I think that he offers instant pass rush upside. There's some work to be done in the run game, but ultimately what the past 2 Super Bowls have shown, specifically with the Eagles defense and the Seahawks defense, you can never have enough good pass rushers. So Malachi Lawrence, like him a lot, big winner, especially for the way that he tested in Indy, and for everything that I've heard is good things between the ears for Malachi Lawrence. So, all right. Oh, we have a little bit of a joke here. The Commanders, joke. They trade Jaden Daniels for the Raiders. I'm sure that the Commanders want to do that. My favorite is like, hey, let's trade our quarterback on a rookie contract and hope that Fernando Mendoza can be that player. That already took us to the NFC Championship game. Let's do exactly that. All right. Anyway, next big winner is Mike Washington. Can I turn my mic up? Is my mic at a good volume? Let me see if I can do this here. Hold on. Let me see. I see why you would say that. Hold on. I'm going to see if I can. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Is my mic fine? Let me know. Is my mic at a good level? I'm going to see if I can turn this up a bit here. You're a little low? Okay. Appreciate it. How about now? Is that better? Is that better? Volume's fine. All right. I appreciate it. All right. Maybe I messed with something here. Hold on. That got in my head. That definitely got in my head. Worse. Shoot. I got quieter. Just give me 1 sec. That definitely got in my head there, for sure. And I don't know what the solution is here. I knew I shouldn't have did that. All right, let's just go ahead and... There we go. Now we're good. We're back. How about that? We're back. All right. Next winner is... Let's go ahead and edit this here. Mike Washington, the running back from Arkansas. So, Mike Washington... obviously, a really good combine for Mike Washington. 225 pounds. Ran a blazing 4.33 40. And for Mike Washington specifically, he is a player that I would say is a north and south runner. You think of a guy that can do like the Barry Sanders as Chris Berman used to do, the boop and the boop, and everything, where all of the east and west. That's not Mike Washington. But for Mike Washington to be able to run a 4.33 40, to run or to have a 39-inch vertical, there's a clear role for him in the NFL. And or not that there wasn't before, but like there's a clear role for somebody to want to bring him in as a rotational back. And I really like the idea of Mike Washington being a home run threat. And This running back class is not the best. So for Mike Washington to be able to have this type of impact at Indy and to not only run a fast 40-yard dash, but to also have the explosion in the lower body with the 39-inch vertical, with the 10-8 broad jump, makes him one of the biggest winners. So I like that from Mike Washington. And there's right now, I would say either Jadarian Price is my running back too, but after that, there's several players. There's Seth McGowan from Kentucky. There's Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. Mike Washington's in the conversation. He's a fun player. And full transparency for people that want to ask or want to talk about, hey, what could this guy actually do from a statistical standpoint? I don't think Mike Washington's going to be, an 800-yard, 7-touchdown player in his rookie season. But it's the idea that you have a home run threat every time he's on the field and a player that is a solid backup running back, a guy that is a change of pace player relative from your starter, and a guy that can legitimately take NFL carries. So I like Mike Washington and wouldn't expect too much from him, stat sheet impact wise as a rookie in 2026, but he definitely boosted his stock this past weekend. So definitely wanted to highlight that. Couple super chats. Tony says, as a Broncos fan, I was optimistic and hope Sadiq would be available at 30. Finally got our Joker. But after the combine, not a chance he's there. Agree. And by the way, little spoiler, we do have a mock draft coming out tomorrow. So make sure to be there. Turn notifications on if they're not already on. Subscribe. There will be a mock draft out tomorrow. It'll be a post-combine mock draft with trades. Definitely want to highlight that, with trades. All right, Perp, good call here. Al Davis will possess Spytech and draft Washington. Good call. By far, to me, the craziest Al Davis selection was Darius Hayward-Bay, number 7 overall. That was just not a good process there from the Raiders. And that was, there's a reason that the Raiders, especially during that time frame, were not exactly a great football team. All right. Next winner, Dylan Thieneman, safety, Oregon. I'd be pretty surprised after the combine that he had that if he's not a top 20 pick. My favorite team, the Minnesota Vikings, needs a safety in the absolute worst way. Caleb Downs will not be there for the Vikings at pick 18. Then you have a conversation of, who's safety 2 in this class? Is it Emmanuel McNeil-Warren? Is it Dylan Thieneman? Both players are really good. Thieneman runs a 4.35 40. He's a really, really instinctual player. What a combine for Dylan Thieneman. And talked to a couple of people about Thieneman this weekend. They were really, really, obviously his Oregon tape is awesome, but they were also really, really impressed with his Purdue tape. And the conversations that I had about Thieneman out at Indy were, this is a player that can do it all. This is a player that Brian Flores would love. And with the safety need for Minnesota as openly, as critical as it is, I will say post-combine, don't think this should be a hot take. But personally, I think that his floor is 18. Somebody saying the Rams could take him at 13, that would make sense. But that also amplifies / magnitudes what I'm saying. I don't think that he gets past pick 18. He is really, really good player. And to have the instincts plus the 4.35 40, guys, this is what a really, really good safety prospect looks like. Thieneman to the Pats, don't think he's going to make it there. I would like that, and to have a secondary with him and Craig Woodson and Christian Gonzalez, good luck. But that would be a really good pairing. Just don't think he's going to make it there. Thank you. I appreciate it. But no, I just don't think that Dylan Thieneman's going to fall to pick 31. Just would be very, very surprised. All right, next player up on the list. I'm actually going to go to one of the biggest losers first before I continue the winners. So let's go ahead and just keep it rolling here. Let's switch it up a little bit. And the first one is Lee Hunter, big defensive lineman from Texas Tech. Lee Hunter, by the way, 6'4", 320, 21.5-inch vertical. That's really, really bad. I mean, that is, like, if everybody remembers the DK Metcalf, all of his combine stuff 7 years ago, which that does not seem possible that it was 7 years ago, but it was. This is really, really bad in this aspect. To show the complete lack of just lower body, like I was going to say explosiveness is the word, but just the lower body power, if you will, within the vertical, within the broad jump. That's not good for a player that already has a lot of questions for who he will be at the next level. Because Lee Hunter is 6'4", 320. He's very much a run-stuffing defensive tackle. He is very much a player that I think is kind of like a fire hydrant in the middle of the defense. And I love the fire hydrant zero tech defensive tackles. But the biggest thing that I'll emphasize with a player like Lee Hunter is you still want thresholds met from an athleticism standpoint. Because the biggest thing with Lee Hunter that you have to question after the combine is, okay, this guy was, the lower body explosion was astronomically bad. So if we draft him, how quickly is he going to be able to get off the ball at the NFL level? You know, if we draft him and he's going up against somebody like a protector of the year in Joe Thuney or Quentin Nelson or any other dominant guard, how is he going to be able to get off the ball if this is what we're seeing at the combine pre-NFL draft? It's a discussion that has to be had. So I like what I saw on tape from Lee Hunter, but the threshold that we saw here it wasn't even a threshold. It was astronomically low. It's like going, for a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit and you're going like 14 miles an hour, for reference. But we'll see what happens from here. Now, another player that I admittedly was not a fan of pre-NFL Combine, and I'm certainly not a fan post-NFL Combine. It's a specific archetype of player that I generally am not the biggest fan of, and it is the tweeners. I am not a guy that loves somebody that is 6'3", 6'4", 280, 285. If you are in that range, most of the time I would prefer you to bulk up to be 290, 295. And LT Overton, 6'3", 278, did not like the tape at all. It runs a 4.87 40. I feel like he's better off putting on 10 pounds kicking inside. I was not a fan of Darius Robinson 2 years ago, and everybody has their draft hits, everybody has their draft misses. I would prefer to have my draft hits on players I'm lower on. I don't like victory lapping players that I was way lower on than consensus, and I'm not trying to do that. Oh, I told you so. But my whole point is with Darius Robinson is I'm not a fan of tweeners at all. I feel like there's a far lower hit rate on those specific players because they don't have a natural position at the NFL level. And I'm not an LT Overton fan, and I came away from the combine with more questions than answers with LT Overton. If you run a 4.87 40, you are nowhere near fast enough to be able to play edge at the NFL level. Nowhere near it. So I do have a lot of questions about LT Overton, and we have a comment here about that LT is also overweight. I can't imagine that his game plan was to enter the combine at near 280. I would have thought that given LT Overton obviously knows, and his camp knows that the tweener labels were going to come up, that you would have wanted him to weigh in probably 269, 270, 8 to 10 pounds thinner. And that way you'd be able to move all that mass faster down the not track, but down the 40, if you will. So this is a player to me that is not good on tape. The numbers show that he's not good. He had 7 sacks in 4 years. I wouldn't take LT Overton before day 3, personally. Maybe that's a hot take. I am not a fan. Wish him the best. Wish him the best. And I hope that he proves me wrong. But I don't even think it's like remembering Darius Robinson. I generally am just... I'm generally way out on tweeners to begin with. And by the way, if you guys have any thoughts on those types of players, or if you guys have any thoughts on a specific player you are lower on than consensus, let me know. Maybe you are higher on receiving backs than consensus. Maybe you're higher on whatever press man corners. Then you'd rather have a press man corner than pretty much a typical zone corner, a guy that doesn't play a lot of press. Let me know. I'd be eager to hear and read comments based on that. We do have a super chat from Andrew. Appreciate it. Andrew says, as a Texans fan, I'm over the moon. Running back was our biggest hole. Now we need to hard focus on the O-line, and we can compete with anyone. I do have some concerns about your quarterback, specifically after this year, although that whole situation has been just not great for the past 2 years, and you know that. But I am really happy for you with the David Montgomery trade, and I'm with you that continue to hammer the offensive line. So definitely continue to hammer the O-line, hope for the best. And I like David Montgomery a lot. I don't think he is a washed back at all. But I like the trade for the Texans quite a bit. All right, let's keep it rolling. All right. Another player that I'm a little lower on than consensus, and it is Notre Dame receiver Malachi Fields. So one of the reasons that I'm lower on Malachi Fields is there's a player or two every year that we see in the pre-draft process. You'll start to see people sneak him into end of the first round mocks. I don't think there's any scenario this year where I would sneak Malachi Fields into an end of round 1 mock, whether it's to the Patriots at 31, whether it's to the Bills and 49ers, right near the end of the first round. Both teams need receivers. This is a player that I don't think separates great. And, I mean, he is 6'4", 6'5", near 220. Those big archetype receivers naturally are going to be better at catching contested passes than a smaller receiver, somebody like a Tyreek Hill, like a Jackson Smith-Njigba. Obviously, you're not going to throw a jump ball to either of those guys over those big 6'4", 6'5" guys, right? But I don't think Malachi Fields is that good of an athlete. And that's where my concerns come in with Malachi Fields. And he goes to the combine and runs a 4.61. So we have a player who looked good at the Senior Bowl. But when he goes out, when it's hell or high water, an event that obviously him and everybody else have been training for weeks, and you go out and run a 4.61, I can't say that's something where I can get behind, because guys obviously know where they're running. It's not like their trainers are saying, hey, Malachi, you're running a 4.31. At least I hope he's not. Otherwise, he should be fired immediately for lying to his client, if that were the extreme dramatic case, which I would venture to say it's not. I don't think he is a player that is going to have long-term success at the NFL level, because I don't think he separates well. He ran I didn't think his route tree was complex at Notre Dame, and for a player that already has separation issues, in my opinion, I'm going to be way lower on, like way lower on Malachi Fields than I am, or than other people will be. Curious to hear if there's anybody you guys are lower on, so let me know that one. Now, another player that I have talked about a little bit is R. Mason Thomas. And R. Mason Thomas is a player that I have personally comped to Nick Bonito. And very loosely, by the way. I'm not saying, hey, R. Mason's going to be, a 15 sack guy or 14 and a half or whatever Nick Benito had this past year. That's his trajectory in year 4. And if he's not, then, fire me, right? But I think that he's a good player on tape. And what I actually wrote down for R. Mason Thomas was undersized edge with good first step that lacks true raw power, concern for durability at NFL level, / how many snaps he plays per game, but like him as a secondary rusher. So for R. Mason Thomas to come out at, and by the way, he's 6'2", 250, which obviously is generally undersized for that position. You're going to have players that are going to be sub 250 that have success. Will Anderson is not a heavy player, but there's only one Will Anderson, and you're going to draft probably 20 players trying to be the next Will Anderson before you come across Will Anderson, right? So for R. Mason Thomas to run a 4.67 40, that's slower than you'd like for his weight. And that to me makes him one of the the more unfortunate players from the combine, especially whenever you see players like Arvell Reese absolutely lighting it up, like Malachi Lawrence lighting it up, who ran over a tenth of a second faster, who's a lot more has a lot better of a physical profile than R. Mason Thomas, and a player that played with a lot more strength on tape than R. Mason Thomas. So, and why R. Mason Thomas, I think I'm also including him, is this is a really loaded edge class. There's going to be there's a plethora of edge rushers in the first 3 rounds of the 2026 draft. So, you come out and have a great combine like Malachi Lawrence, you can go from maybe pick 62 in the draft to maybe pick 48. And likewise with R. Mason Thomas, you can go from maybe pick 39, 40, 41 early in the second round to maybe you're looking at early third round. So we'll see how it plays out for R. Mason Thomas. I just would have liked to have seen him test at least a tenth of a second faster in both the 40 and the 10-yard split. And why the 10-yard split to me specifically matters more at the edge rushing position than other positions is you need that get off the ball. You need to be able to get into the backfield as soon as you possibly can. So if you have concerns with your playing style and the fact that he has sub 32-inch arms, and you already have concerns about your acceleration getting off the line of scrimmage, that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell. So R. Mason Thomas, unfortunately, one of the bigger losers, I would say, from the 2026 combine. What's up, Blur Eats? How we doing? All right, next player here. I do want to quickly discuss one player that you guys know I am very high on. I don't want to only talk about players I'm lower on, and then basically not talk about players that I'm high on and kind of skimp around the fact that a player I like did not have the best combine per se. Carnell Tate ran a 4.54 40. I think Carnell Tate plays faster than that. And then there was agent. There were a lot of people that suspected an agent texted Adam Schefter, and because immediately or the day after it came out that NFL teams had Carnell Tate anywhere between 4.45 and 4.47. What I'll say about Carnell Tate, despite him running the 4.54 40, I think he plays faster than that. And look, his speed is what it is, and I want this to apply not just to Carnell Tate, but this applies to every other player that we're discussing in today's stream, is that you have pro days to improve your times. I think Carnell Tate's a sub 4.5 guy. I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't run again at his pro day and it's not 4.47, 4.49, somewhere in there. We'll see what comes out of that, but 4.54 definitely for Carnell Tate. My wide receiver 1, definitely disappointing relative to the player that I thought he was entering the combine. And I'm not going to give up on Carnell Tate and say that he's my wide receiver 5 now after the combine because of a 4.5 440. It's not like he ran a 5.1 40. So I think that he's a good player, and we'll see what happens at his pro day. All right, now Carnell Tate, quick super chat here, by the way. Appreciate it. From Flexi. Appreciate it. He says, what do you think the Commanders' plan is for the O-line after releasing Biadasz and rumored to let Chris Paul... Rumored to let Chris Paul test free agency, especially with a first-time OC. It's a good question. Obviously, you have your tackles set with Tunsil and Josh Connerly. But what I would say is this. I know it's easy for me to sit back here and say this and to basically just, kind of like wave my hand and just act like everything's fine. But what I would say is the Commanders definitely have a plan. They're not doing this by accident, and they're not entering free agency without a clear plan in place. Are they going to go after Tyler Linderbaum with everything they have? I mean, they're clearly going to do something in free agency, because it would be wildly arrogant to only have 2 picks in the top 100, one of which at pick 7, I don't think they're going to use on an offensive lineman, and then to think that the 71st pick in the draft is going to fix everything. That's, no offense, how you end up with Brandon Coleman in 2024 allowing 10 sacks on the season in Jaden Daniels' rookie season. As cliche as it is, great offensive linemen go early in the draft, and it's because they are extremely, extremely hard to come by. Great offensive linemen go early in the draft. They don't leave in free agency. My guess would be take your choosing of Elijah Vera Tucker, Zion Johnson, Tevin Jenkins, Ed Ingram. Take your choosing of those players. Maybe 34 going on 35-year-old Joe Bitonio. Maybe Wyatt Teller, who's also getting up there in age. We'll see, but they definitely have a plan. I would say that. Coop, appreciate it. Thoughts on Reese versus Bailey debate at 2 for the Jets? We have a mock draft coming out tomorrow. Maybe you'll have to tune in then to see what my answer for that is. No, you sent a super chat, Coop. I appreciate it. I personally think that they're going to go Arvell Reese right now. That's where I would stand on that. But I appreciate the super chat. I'm not going to give you that answer and then or I'm not going to have you send the super chat and then give you that answer. So appreciate it. All right. Next big winner is Carnell Tate's college teammate, Sonny Styles. So Sonny Styles, I have said this before, and I do stand by this, that I really think the generational word is thrown around far too often in the draft process. Although I will say, I don't think it's been thrown around too much this year, which is nice, because I hate when people... when there's a good first round prospect like Tetairoa McMillan, who was a good player, not a generational player. He wasn't a Jamar Chase. I'm not trying to bring Tet down. He just wasn't a generational player. My point is I think that Sonny Styles is kind of a generational athlete at the linebacker position. And Sonny Styles, 6'5", 244, 43.5-inch vert, 4'4", 640. There was a picture of Sonny Styles, his brother Lorenzo Styles, and his dad. His dad was have you ever heard the phrase dad strength? His dad was yoked, dude. And oh wait, I forgot to have the text on the screen. His dad was absolutely yoked. And Sonny Styles is a player that I would love for him to go to a team like the New York Giants that already has those pieces in front of him in place. That way Sonny Styles can just shoot gaps. He'd just be a chase down type player in that system. I love Sonny Styles. Absolutely incredible combine, and he is a very, very good linebacking prospect, and I would say one of the best in the past probably several years. I would say he's better than Jihad Campbell, and I love Jihad Campbell last year, but he's a phenomenal prospect. And generational combine performance from Sonny Styles. 11.2 broad jump, the best of any player in his position group, and exceeded by only a few others since 2003. So, at 6'5", 244, there was also a graphic of Sonny Styles where I wanted to see if I can find this. And by the way, these things are always like cherry picked, where it's like, oh, hey, he's faster than this player, and it's usually a receiver that had a slower 40. But Sonny Styles, it was something utterly insane where it was like he was faster than Devontae Adams, taller than Mike Evans, had a higher vert than just other players. It was, I mean, he's a freak, man. Just utterly insane. So Sonny Styles compared very favorably to Megatron. By the numbers, they same height. Sonny Styles weighs 5 pounds more. Calvin ran a little bit of a faster 40, but when they do the by the numbers thing, it was just... Here it is, by the way. Same height as Calvin Johnson, same 40 as Bijan Robinson, 8 pounds lighter than Derrick Henry, same broad jump as Julio Jones, half an inch vertical less than LeBron James. So, Calvin does have longer arms. Good call on that, Joseph. But generational performance by Sonny Styles. I will say that. I think that's fair. So, all right. Next player. I think we're going to have to roll with Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese had a great combine. I think everybody was expecting that from the Ohio State players. And to have, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, both players come out and perform the way they did was awesome. I'm actually going to clear that. There we go. Jeremiah Love, also a huge winner from the combine. Jeremiah Love, 4.3740. Jeremiah Love is, guys, he's just the best running back prospect since Bijan, which was 3 years ago. And I would say Jeremiah Love is the third best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. So Saquon, Bijan, Jeremiah Love, Ashton Jeanty would be how that ranking would go. Great performance by, I'm getting the hiccups now, by Jeremiah Love. All right, super chat from Eufio, appreciate it. He says, Generational Equals has Dunker's mullet. Yeah, Jennings Dunker is going to be a fan favorite for sure. He's definitely going to be a fan favorite for sure. Let me keep it rolling here. Somebody that I did want to also shout out, Deion Burks. So Deion Burks is a receiver from Oklahoma, and Deion Burks you're going to see a lot of, I would say, not Tyreek Hill, but he's a short, fast, explosive receiver. Tyreek Hill's not the player that you're going to probably see. It's going to be similar to Tavon Austin, like those types of players, right? Deion Burks runs a 4.340, 42.5-inch vertical, 26 reps on the bench press. So for Deion Burks to have the type of day that he had at the combine, huge winner for him walking out of Indy. Deion Burks is 5'9", 180. Guys, I don't think, for anybody who may not lift, to have 26 reps of 225 at 180 pounds, that is, I can't even describe just how rocked up you have to be able to do that. How much dense muscle is on your body to be able to put up 26 reps with 45 pounds more than your body weight. Now, that's more than some offensive linemen at 180 pounds. So huge winner for Deion Burks. Let's keep it rolling here. Arvell Reese, by the way, 4'4", 640 at 240 pounds, 1.58 split. Unreal. All right. Let's see here. Somebody's asked about Ephesians Prysock. Yeah, so I liked his tape when I saw it. I think he'll be everybody wants to find the next sleeper. I think he is a true sleeper. I do like everything that there is to like about Ephesians Prysock. So I want to just pull up some actual numbers here with him, because people are going to be surprised if they are not already aware. He is pull it up here. He's a 6'3", 195-pound corner, 39-inch vertical, over 10 feet on the broad, 4'4", 40, 33-inch arms. I like his game, guys. I like his game a lot. And he was a player that I mean, was researching a lot of players back in January. His tape popped off. Like him a lot. We have Just Me and My Thoughts, member of the channel. Appreciate it. He says, Emmett Johnson, not great at Combine, but good tape. He would definitely be one of the bigger losers from the Combine. He had a near 4.6 40, did not perform well, but I think there is something to be said about players, again, that have good game tape. And if you've ever heard the phrase, players, or something, and this is more for like a safety position, but a 4-5 safety with instincts plays better than a 4-3 safety without instincts. I would say that applies with Emmett Johnson. I thought his tape was really good this year. He's a really good running back prospect coming out of Nebraska. If you have him at RB2, I know a lot of people have Jadarian Price as their second running back. I wouldn't be opposed to having Emmett Johnson as your second running back. Thoughts on Trey Lance's brother, Bryce Lance? Good call out. Good call out with Bryce Lance. I'm going to pull up the exact numbers with Bryce Lance. Bryce Lance, 6'3", 204 pounds, 4'3", 440, 41-inch vert, 11 feet on the broad. North Dakota State, not just because he went to North Dakota State, but that type of height, weight, speed, explosiveness in the lower body reminds me a lot of Christian Watson from 2022 with the Packers. So I like Bryce Lance. He's been a big day 3 sleeper. So is my guy Ted Hurst from Georgia State. Like both of those players quite a bit. But good call out. Good call out on Bryce Lance. Do you think Makai Lemon's interview concerns are warranted or just the media being bored? Makai Lemon, if you guys are not aware, he was like, he was answering questions like this and it was like, yeah, man, like he was just like, his eyes were like, and he was like bobbing his head the whole time. What I'll say is, I'm not in the interviews behind closed doors. If there's things like that going on behind closed doors in team interviews, in what is a job interview, because what has to be remembered is these are job interviews for players. If he's going in talking to the GM like that, I would say that's something to definitely be concerned about. And I would make sure to do my homework big time. There's also something to be said that, hey, this is the Combine. There's, it's, guys could be nervous. They are human too. I'm not, I like to kind of like refer back to this because I think it's the most fair way that I can answer this. I'm not educated enough on Makai Lemon, his background, and then, of course, because I wasn't in the room with the GM, with the head coach, with other scouts in that interview. So I would say I'm not educated enough, but what I would say is if that kept up during those one-on-one meetings and you were interviewing for a job like that, I would say that's a red flag then. So that's what I would say. All right. Super chat from Geiger. Appreciate it. Says, Mike Washington to Seattle, any good day 2 tackles? Mike Washington to Seattle, I mean, you'd still have Charbonnet coming off the ACL. I would prefer Mike Washington to go somewhere else, respectfully. Any good day 2 tackles? I do like Max, and this is a good name, by the way. This is a really good name. Max Ihenacher, the offensive tackle from Arizona State. I like him quite a bit. There were maybe some people talking about Jennings Dunker, the offensive lineman from Iowa. And I like Jennings Dunker, but I think he is a guard at the next level. But Max Ihenacher is a player that showed flashes on tape, but he's definitely a project, and he's very raw. I think the story of Ihenacher is that he didn't play football for a long time in his life, and that he was still very much learning the game up until like 4 or 5 years ago, and I think that there's times where that shows on tape. But he's a very raw player, but a guy on day 2 that I think would be well worth an investment. Also, you definitely cannot teach size with Miami's Markel Bell. So, that's what I would say. All right. If K9 does not get re-signed, can Mike be a good replacement? I would think that's a very, very tall task to come in and replace Kenneth Walker, personally. I like Mike Washington. But to expect that, especially because he'd have to pick up a lot of the workload early in the year because Charbonnet is coming off the major injury, I would not like that fit for Seattle. It's more of a Seattle thing than it is Mike Washington thing, respectfully. So that would be that. And you get nervous over Kenneth leaving? I get it. I would too. Especially Super Bowl MVP. I would definitely want him back. Here's a good call out, Will. Biggest winner, in my opinion, Jeff Caldwell. Showed he has speed to back up his receiving ability. Heard a couple stories about Jeff Caldwell in Indy. Good stories, by the way. Good stories. No, good stories about Jeff Caldwell. Looks the part. Looks like he has. And the biggest thing that I would say about misses of players. No, let me rephrase this. There are misses at times that you have with players that you find things out later. And I'm referring to like mental makeup. Hey, does this guy have the drive to get better? Because it's one thing to watch talent on tape, and then it's one thing to see a guy that is a mid-second round talent that wants to, be in the NFL for 10 years, and then it's one thing to have a guy that's a late first round talent and is good with signing the rookie contract, and then he's done, right? So what I'm saying is, Jeff Caldwell, the mental makeup's there. I like Jeff Caldwell, everything that I've seen, and I'm with you. The speed to back up his receiving ability, awesome. For reference, Jeff Caldwell, I want to pull this up exactly. Let's pull it up here. Jeff Caldwell is 6 foot, 216, 42-inch vert, 4.31 40. So Jeff Caldwell, very fun player to project, and definitely a player you'd want on drag routes, deep posts, obviously go balls, maybe even fly sweeps. You just want to get the ball in Jeff Caldwell's hands. So agree with that. How much does Kenyon Sadiq's 40-time impact his draft stock? I would say significantly. 4.3940 is the all-time record for the tight end position. He's 240 pounds. This is a player you can move all over the football field. It significantly impacts the stock. I thought pre-combine, maybe Denver in the late part of the first round, somebody could trade up from the second round to go up and get him. I'd be pretty surprised if he's there past 19 area. I could see Carolina if they really wanted to. I know they have Jatavian. 19 to 20 area would be my ceiling or my floor for Kenyon Sadiq. But if you guys are enjoying, please like the stream, helps tremendously. Cannot thank you guys enough for the support. And there will be a mock draft tomorrow morning. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Turn notifications on if you already don't have them on. Would very much appreciate that. We're trying to 250,000 subscribers before the NFL draft. Very lofty goal, but we'll see. So if you're not already, please subscribe. And I recently did start a football analysis Facebook page. So if you want to go, if you're on Facebook, if your dad's on Facebook, well, whatever. If you want somebody, a media personality to have a common stance with, by all means, go follow the football analysis Facebook page. Would very much appreciate it. But as always, until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.